Da Vinci Ride is the extremely unique B&M wing coaster at Fantasy Valley in Xiangyang. While most of the other wing coasters are very inversion heavy, Da Vinci Ride instead puts a much larger emphasis on airtime moments. So does that make it better than the other wing coasters? Find out in this review. In 2011, B&M built Raptor at Gardaland, the first installation of a brand new model known as the wing coaster. Instead of the seats being directly above or below the track, you are seated on either side. It was a huge success as close to 20 have already opened. And nowhere has gotten more installations than China, and it's not even close. The country has so far received 8 B&M wing coasters, which range from the world's tallest wing coaster to one where the last row faces backwards. And the latest one to open so far went to Fantasy Valley, which is the subject of this video. While most B&M wing coasters flip you upside down repeatedly, they decided to break the mold a bit with this one, giving it a layout resembling one of their hypercoasters. Da Vinci Ride is located right at the front of Fantasy Valley. It is highly visible from the road right next to the park, and the 0G roll and wave turn interact with the canopy at the front entrance, which is a really cool visual. To find the ride, you simply make a left turn after passing under the canopy. The ride's entrance is a giant Renaissance-style building with the name printed on it. This coaster is loosely themed to Leonardo da Vinci and his many inventions, more specifically a flying machine. In fact, this coaster's Chinese name is Da Vinci Flying. There is not much theming beyond that, but that is okay because the layout is strong enough to hold its own. The queue line is in a covered set of switchbacks. Operations on Da Vinci Ride were absolutely terrible. They were only running one train, and after splitting us into 2 sides, we had to do a long stretching routine before climbing the stairs to the station. After that, the operators were in absolutely no hurry whatsoever checking the restraints. In fact, I remember sitting there after having pulled down my restraint for 10 minutes just waiting for it to be checked. As such, the line for Da Vinci Ride moved extremely slowly and took over 90 minutes. Da Vinci Ride's train is 8 cars long with 2 seats on each side for a total capacity of 32 passengers. The ride uses B&M's standard vest restraints, which are thankfully the newer version which does not lock in place when the ride dispatches. I find this quite comfortable as it prevents all headbanging, not that this coaster would have had any anyways. Being built at a time when B&Ms were beginning to open with a rattle, I was a bit worried that Da Vinci Ride might be quite rough, but it wasn't rougher than any other B&M wing coaster I've ridden. There was still a slight bounce here and there, but it was thankfully perfectly tolerable. Unfortunately, on the day I went, there was a thunderstorm in the afternoon which caused all the outdoor rides, including Da Vinci Ride, to close. After the storm ended, it took them several hours to reopen the rides, at which point I had to leave the park. That, combined with the terrible operations, is why I only got one ride on Da Vinci Ride. That ride was on the back left inside seat though, which I would imagine is a pretty good spot. Da Vinci Ride begins with the lift hill straight out of the station. This is actually one of the taller B&M wing coasters out there, standing 55 meters or 180 feet tall. At the top, you plunge down a really good first drop. In the back, you will get some strong sustained floater airtime as you are whipped over the crest, and I would imagine that the front might also get a bit of airtime too. It really reminds me of the first drop on Parrot Coaster at Chimelong Ocean Kingdom. The valley has some good positive Gs, though it is weirdly high off the ground, which is a pretty common theme with this ride. Then you go into a 0G roll. It has some great hang time as you slowly rotate through it, as well as some good laterals. And in the back left, I even got some nice floater airtime exiting the element. It is such a graceful inversion, and the following valley has some more nice positive Gs, as well as being very high off the ground. RCDB classifies the following element as a cutback, but it looks and feels just like an Immelman. The positive Gs from the previous valley are maintained up the ascent, and in the back, I also got a little bit of whip as I twisted out of it. That is followed by what was my most anticipated moment on the entire ride, the wave turn. And this is such a fun element. You will get several seconds of sideways sustained floater airtime the whole way through. It is by no means the strongest, but it is still so cool levitating sideways like that. It really reminds me of the wave turn on Bullet Coaster at Happy Valley, Shenzhen. Off-ride, it is visually striking seeing the train stalled sideways. I would imagine that on the right side, you would also get a cool visual skimming right over the entrance canopy, but I unfortunately never got to experience that for the reasons I stated earlier. This exits into a forceful valley, which is once again very high off the ground, before going into a more traditional airtime hill. This gives some more good sustained floater airtime. Where I rode in the back, the airtime was weaker on the ascent, before getting much stronger as you were pulled over the subsequent drop. I would imagine that it is probably the other way around up front. That transitions into a helix, which starts out with a forceful low to the ground turn underneath the base of the lift hill, though it is still pretty high off the ground. Then it turns into an overbanked turn with weaker positive Gs. That is followed by another airtime hill, which has some more good sustained floater airtime. Like the previous hill, in the back it gave weaker airtime on the ascent, and then the airtime became significantly stronger on the subsequent drop, while I would imagine that in the front this is reversed. That leads into the ride's final inversion, a corkscrew. It gives some decent hang time, though at the top you will also notice the train jerk slightly. It causes no discomfort whatsoever, but it is still noticeable in an otherwise very smooth coaster. After that, there is another helix, which is pretty much just the inverse of the prior helix. It starts out as an overbanked turn with milder positive Gs, but then it dives into a low to the ground turn with much stronger forces. And this is also the only part where the ride actually goes all the way down to ground level. This helix exits into one final ascent, which has a bit of decent sustained floater airtime, which I would imagine is a bit better up front. Then you hit the final brake run and return to the station, which ends the 1,059 meter or 3,474 foot long coaster. Overall, Da Vinci Ride is a really good coaster. I love how many airtime moments it has as opposed to many of the other B&M wing coasters which have tons of inversions. It certainly reminds me of one of their hyper coasters. I especially enjoyed the wave turn, which actually delivers some very cool sideways airtime unlike a certain other B&M wave turn, or so I heard. And it is thankfully also a very smooth ride, which is a huge relief compared to other B&M coasters that opened at around the same time. You may remember that a while back when I reviewed Parrot Coaster at Xiangyang Ocean Kingdom, I mentioned that it really reminded me of Da Vinci Ride in the sense that they both lack inversions in favor of airtime moments, and now having ridden both coasters, they happen to be my two favorite B&M wing coasters. So which one do I prefer? Ultimately, I would still give the slight edge to Parrot Coaster. While Da Vinci Ride certainly has better airtime, I like Parrot Coaster's inversions better, and it is also a longer ride, though Da Vinci Ride is still an excellent wing coaster. So what would I rate Da Vinci Ride? I would give it an 8 out of 10. This undeniably has the best airtime of any B&M wing coaster, at least that I have ridden. These rides were always meant to be graceful and floaty, and while the older wing coasters certainly achieved that with their inversions, I think it was about time B&M tried something new. And in my opinion, it worked out beautifully. It is so much fun being repeatedly levitated out of your seat like that, especially on the wave turn. I really hope B&M builds more wing coasters like this, because a larger and longer version of Da Vinci Ride could be incredible. With all that said, what are your thoughts on Da Vinci Ride? Have you ridden it? How does it compare to some of B&M's other wing coasters? Did you enjoy the airtime as opposed to the inversions? Or is it still on your bucket list? I would love to hear all of your thoughts down in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this coaster review, and I would be extremely grateful if you gave this video a like and subscribe to my channel because more videos will be coming in the future. Thanks for watching.